Software security used to be a black box. Trust us, it's secure. Regulators and enterprise buyers no longer accept that. They now expect glass box transparency, SBOMs, clear documentation, and verifiable claims. In this module, we'll turn that expectation into concrete, reusable practices you can build into how you design and deliver software. For software and SaaS, trust us, it's secure no longer works. Regulators now expect proof: how it's built, what's inside it, and how quickly you fix flaws. Buyers want transparency, not secrets. Secure by design is how you operate in that new reality and turn security evidence into a competitive advantage. Across the US, UK, and EU, regulators are converging on the same message: opacity is over. You're expected to know what's inside your software, be able to prove it, and react fast when something goes wrong. SBOM-like visibility is no longer optional. It's becoming a basic condition for shipping and operating software at scale. Think of an SBOM as the ingredient label for your software. It lists every component, who built it, the exact version, and how those pieces connect. That might sound administrative, but regulators now treat this transparency as foundational. When a new vulnerability appears, organizations with SBOMs can quickly answer a critical question: are we exposed, where, and how badly? Secure by design only works if everyone can describe software components in a consistent, machine-readable way. That's where SBOM formats come in. CycloneDX is optimized for security, vulnerabilities, exploitability, and operational risk. SPDX is optimized for licenses and intellectual property. Together, they give you a common language, so tools, vendors, and customers can automatically exchange trustworthy component data at scale. Regulators aren't asking for an SBOM just to get a longer spreadsheet. Think of transparency as a stack. At the base is inventory, knowing what you run, what you ship, and which components you depend on. That's the SBOM layer. Above that is context. Which components are exposed, internet-facing, in production, or tied to critical customers. That turns raw lists into risk insight. Only on top of that do attestations and certifications really matter, because now they're anchored to concrete assets and meaningful risk. Regulation is also moving away from trusting static PDFs and policy decks. What they want is dynamic assurance, clear traceability from the security claim you make, to the components that implement it, to continuous evidence that it actually works. If you claim encryption at rest, you should be able to point to the specific libraries, configs, and tests that prove it. Secure by design programs use SBOMs, automation, and verification pipelines to turn every claim into something independently checkable. Transparency doesn't mean handing over your crown jewels. Think of your product like a vault. Inside, you keep source code and critical IP tightly protected. What you do expose is how that vault is built and operated, your security controls, processes, and SBOM-level visibility. That glass box view lets customers and regulators verify you're secure by design without enabling copycats or attackers. Mature organizations formalize this boundary and stick to it in reviews and contracts. The goal is to avoid building 3 different security programs for the US, UK, and EU. Instead, design a single secure by design standard that is stricter than any one jurisdiction, and treat it as your global baseline. From that baseline, generate modular documentation views that speak CISA language for US buyers, PSTI, and UK guidance for the UK, and CRA or NIS2 terms for the EU. You're engineering one product core, then reusing tailored evidence to prove compliance everywhere. Secure by design regulators expect transparency to be baked into your delivery pipeline, not produced as an afterthought. Every commit and build should automatically leave evidence: SBOMs, security test results, policy checks, and a traceable audit trail. Instead of hunting spreadsheets during an incident or audit, you can prove what code ran where and with which dependencies. Treat transparency artifacts as core outputs of the SDLC, just like binaries, so they're always current, consistent, and ready for customers and regulators. Under these mandates, vulnerability management is mostly a signal-to-noise problem. SBOMs and scanners generate huge lists of issues, but only a fraction are actually exploitable in your product, in your deployment model. That's where VEX vulnerability exploitability context comes in. For each CVE you decide, not affected, patch pending, or mitigated. The goal is a defendable narrative, not a perfect score. Regulators and buyers increasingly care that you can explain that filtering logic clearly and consistently. Secure by design doesn't stop at your boundary. Whatever you can't see or prove about your vendors, your customers effectively can't see or trust about you. Tier 1 vendors inherit risk from their own providers, and that entire stack flows straight through your organization into your customers' environments. This is why regulators care so much about SBOMs, attestations, and flow-down clauses. They're trying to illuminate that chain. Your goal is simple: no blind links between customer expectations and upstream dependencies. Now let's turn SBOM expectations into a concrete leadership mandate. First, pick a standard and stick to it, usually CycloneDX or SPDX. Then make SBOM generation boring and automatic by wiring it into CI/CD. Add context so it's not just a parts list. Link to key architecture and data flow docs. Create a sanitized public view and a richer internal version, and publish through a consistent trust center your teams and customers can rely on. Regulators are basically handing you a playbook for winning enterprise deals. If you can clearly show how you build, secure, and operate your products, you don't just pass audits, you become the safe, obvious choice. Secure by design transparency is now a growth strategy, not just a compliance obligation.